All right. Good morning, everybody. It's so wonderful to see you all, especially those that have been coming back every week. We welcome you to our final session within our 7-session series of Striving to Thriving. This has been incredibly uplifting and powerful. I've enjoyed every minute of every conversation that we've had, so much to reflect on. You can check out all of the recordings, including today's, probably within the next 24 hours on Rebecca's YouTube channel. I'll get that added to the chat window for you here in a moment. She has created our own Salesforce Women's Network playlist, so it's all in one place. We will have a survey as well to send out toward the end of today's session. So we'd love to hear from you, whether you are a part of the Salesforce Ohana or not. Would still love to hear from you. On the Salesforce side, myself, again, is Kylie Carnes. I'm the Lean In Circles chair for our Women's Network here in Indy, as well as our Women's Network president, Kelsey Jones, who sits on the board for IWL, Integrating Women Leaders, as a board officer. We will keep an eye out for any questions and comments that you have. We have been super active on the chat window through every session thus far. Would love to see that continue. We have returned, some of the ladies that were here a few weeks ago from our communication and confidence session. Rebecca Fleetwood Hessian, of course, the CEO and founder of We Thrive.live, and Alex Perry, the highly acclaimed motivational speaker and creator of Practically Speaking and author of the Minivan Mogul. I'll drop a link to the Amazon website where you can order the book if you'd like. I ordered mine this week, so I'm super happy to get my hands on that. And then last but certainly not least, we have Julie Bachenstedt, the head of People and Culture for Europe and North America for Roche Diabetes Care. And she also sits on the board for IWL as the co-chair. So we can get things going here, Julie.
Okay. So thank you for allowing me to kick off today's session. This is the third one that I have participated in, and I would say that they've been the highlight of my days, right? It's a good way to even start the early part of your day. And yeah, so it's been really great. So I thought we could start by tuning in and really just kind of doing a little bit of personal reflection on affirmation. So this is open to your interaction through the chat. That's kind of how we've done it before. So the first question, Kylie. Okay. So what brings you joy, fulfillment, and growth in your life or work? So if you just kind of had to say today, what comes to mind? And you could just enter it into the chat. Connection with others, my children, helping other women find confidence, helping others, collaborating with others, challenges. Very good. So I think it's important to kind of center ourselves on what is really important to us as we think about this discussion. You can see here, a lot of us have sunshine. Yes, some good weather obviously helps our moods for sure. But there's a theme there of helping others, collaborating with others, achieving results through others, which is not necessarily unique to women because that's a lot of times how we're wired. So good. Let's go to the next question, Kylie, if you don't mind. So what do you say to yourself that sometimes takes away from this feeling? So we talked about what brings you life and what brings you joy. Is there anything that gets in the way of that? Questioning my choices, yeah. Stress, not feeling appreciated, valued. Maybe not being recognized. Everything that's happening in our globe and around the globe with the pandemic and society. Yeah, so there's a lot of noise, right, in our heads and around us. Sometimes that's, self-doubt. Sometimes it's other environmental things that are happening or other personal things that are happening. Rebecca, too much time alone. Yeah. And then we could go to the last one. do you talk to others the way you talk to yourself? So we're going to try to make a link as we work through the next 45 minutes or hour around communication and wise communication with ourselves and with others, and how do we receive that. So do you think that you talk to yourself the same way that you talk to others? This came up in previous sessions that we had around communication and confidence and your Thrive story, actually 2 sessions that Alex and Rebecca were involved in. Sometimes, not always. Okay. All right. All right. So I think we all know this, but I think it's important to remind ourselves in this session is that recognizing ourselves and all of the unique gifts and attributes that we have is extremely powerful. And that's also something we can give to others, and making them feel important. And this is sometimes overlooked, though. Sometimes it's, for some reason, hard to do, or something, that we may take for granted. Anybody have any thoughts on this point? I take that as maybe we agree. Yeah. Okay. And then if we go to the next piece here, I think we know this. This is, you've got Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is over 7 years old, but of course we know this, that we all need to feel loved, valued, and respected. But there can be differences in how we show this. There's a book that I read, actually, when my partner and I thought we were somewhat disconnected. And his mother actually suggested it's a book called For Women Only by Shanti Feldman. And she talks a lot about how women need to feel valued and men need to feel respected, but we all need to feel loved. And so sometimes, even the classic book, The Love Languages, understanding yourself, and understanding how you work with, how what's important to you translate into how you communicate with others and how you build those relationships. And then here, I think the last point really is that there are ways to be the change. I put real feedback with an underline there, because surface feedback really isn't helpful, right? If it's not timely, or if it's not specific, or it's not related to the person's growth, that actually can be a disengager, right? I underline coaching because I think feedback and coaching are different. As I've grown in my HR career, I've really learned a lot about this. I think coaching's harder to do, because you're spending time really helping somebody develop and maybe even showing them, versus just telling them, oh, you did a great job, or you didn't do a great job. So I think it's important to know the difference between those. And of course, we know affirmation. The one thing too I wanted to mention here that I've learned is that sometimes we get less feedback and even kind of communication and affirmation as we progress in our career. And sometimes when we need it most, as we're making a pivot to a higher level role, I have noticed that, not only personally, but in other people that I have worked with in the organizations I've supported, that they get less and less. And so it's important to know what you need and to be able to role model what good looks like, and also ask for it, no matter what level you are in the organization. So, yeah. Okay. So the last point here is that there's good news, right? This is a very interesting topic, but a lot of it's in our control. There's nothing really that's stopping us from reflecting on what our own needs are, for asking for feedback, and for giving recognition to others, right? So that's really the ask here, is for us as we are today, taking time. We're taking time for this hour on something that's important to us. And if we really do that on a daily basis, to reflect on not only our own blessings, but give that same gift and that same respect to others. So I'll leave you with the quote before I turn it over to Rebecca and Alex. I found this one and I love this one. Attitude is a choice. Happiness is a choice. Optimism is a choice. Kindness is a choice. Giving is a choice. Respect is a choice. Whatever choice you make, choose wisely. So with that, thank you for giving me a little bit of time on behalf of IWL, and I'll turn it over to our amazing presenters.
Thanks so much, Julie. I'm just sitting here thinking about that quote because the first line of my personal mission statement is life is about choices. So definitely hit me with that one for sure. Well, we're back and we're excited. Alex and I here together, and I am going to really miss this next week. I'll probably be huddled somewhere next Thursday morning, just having a little bit of withdrawal from how this has lifted me up. And I know Alex feels the same. We were talking about it last night. So thank you for the opportunity to Salesforce, to IWL, and for all of you that have shown up each week and participated in the chat. As a presenter, that is just life-giving to have your participation. So thank you for making the time and space for us each Thursday. So today, we are going to talk about the difference between affirmation and feedback. And before we can talk about the differences, it's important that we ground ourselves in the definitions of each of these, because one of the themes that you have, I hope, recognized at this point throughout is that our words matter. Our words matter in how we talk to ourselves, and our words matter in how we define expectations for ourselves and our work. And our words matter in how we interact with each other. And oftentimes our words in the title of communication, especially in our work environments, only tend to focus on that last piece of how we interact with each other. But it's really important that we ground ourselves in how we talk to ourselves and the expectations that we set for ourselves and for others. So let's take a look at the difference between affirmation and feedback from a standard dictionary definition and the root of the word. So affirmation is affirming something, which really means to show emotional support or encouragement. And if you've been a part of this series, you know that we've spent a lot of time looking at what are our unique gifts, talents, abilities, essence, personality, style. And we've used the two anchor words, reflection and connection. So our ability to reflect, to look in the mirror and see ourselves with kind and loving eyes about who we are and how God put us on this planet and what we're here to do and how we can use these gifts, talents, and abilities. So to affirm is to look in that mirror or have someone compliment us and hold up the mirror for us so we can reflect and connect, to be able to affirm and give support and encouragement that you've really got a lot of great things that we already came with in terms of our gifts, talents, and abilities. So I love that affirmation is that positive, plays to our purpose and our value and our relevance. Feedback, the definition, is to get reactions on someone's performance or a task, on how you can improve. Important as well, especially in the work scenario. But we have a real propensity to go after feedback far more than we go after affirmation. And as you've also seen in this series, we have this that's been hardwired into us through our education practices from the time we were a child, that everything about school is about right and wrong answers. And you know that feeling, right? When you worked really hard on that paper and you knew it was good. And when it came back and you had like a couple of red marks on the page, what did we then obsess over? The red marks on the page. And were we going to study enough and try hard enough? And there are other aspects of school that leave us believing that feedback and figuring out what we've done wrong is the real job. So Kylie, if you want to click forward one, there's other aspects of school that tie in here. So red marks on the page. There's someone older and smarter at the front of the room, and I need their approval, and I need them to tell me whether they're right, whether I'm right or wrong. I need them to tell me what's next. What else do I need to know? School tells us that we need to go out and acquire information and bring it into ourselves. And so it's no wonder that after 12 to 14 to 16, maybe 20 years of a school environment where we have been absolutely invested in our education as a means to be successful, as a means to be our best, we've also programmed ourselves to believe that the answer is always out there and we have to go acquire it. I always have to go get more. I have to read another book. I have to get another degree. I have to get another brownie badge on my lapel. There's always some external validation of my worth that tells me whether I'm going to get a check mark or whether I'm going to get an X on the page. And so that scripting, if you will, that story of education starts to play into work. And what Alex and I want to do today is affirm you, hold up the mirror and remind you that you already possess so much goodness and information, and it's fascinating what you already know. And instead of using more of what we already know, we still have this propensity to go out and get more. So everything about this series has been about the difference between striving and thriving. And striving actually comes from the root word strife, which means battle and conflict. And when we're constantly in a battle for more information and more validation and more credibility, we prevent ourselves from truly thriving, which means to grow, prosper, and flourish. So I want us to grow, but I want us to spend more time growing in our confidence and our affirmation of what we already possess as our strengths and our talents and the knowledge that you've spent decades acquiring already. So as this education right, wrong answer comes into work, it shows up as a performance appraisal. So Alex is going to talk a little bit about the performance appraisal because we want them, we need them. They're a part of how it all comes together, but there are some healthy ways to see them and to receive them. So Alex, tell us about performance appraisals.
Yeah, because I don't know, who in here goes, I'm going to have my performance appraisal. I can't wait. This is going to be freaking amazing. Have you ever had that reaction to your performance appraisal? Be honest, because if you have, I'm not judging. I just know from personal experience that for me, that the words performance appraisal, Rebecca started talking and my hands started sweating, and I'm not even going for a performance appraisal. The only person who could give a performance appraisal of my work is me at this point. And I don't even want to have that meeting with myself because, right, when we think about the performance appraisal, the format with which we do them, the structure of how we do them mimics, yes, Kelsey says they seem so official. It feels a lot like I've got to pass the test. Let's think about that for a moment. Think about the way that they're set up, they're designed. We go to the person who has the more experience, the more, the higher level of seniority, the person that's managing and organizing our stuff. So, okay, teacher knows best. And then we are looking immediately at that performance appraisal. And what do we look for first? Do we look for the positive comments and all of the high stars or 5s or 10s or whatever number ranked that you are? Do you look for that first? No. You look for red marks and you immediately hone in on those. And then generally speaking, once you've honed in on those, you are simultaneously either agreeing with them, arguing with them, being devastated by them. And you then kick into, well, I've got to try harder. I've got to study more. I've got to do all of the things, and all of the answer is out there. And I had, as Rebecca was talking, I had this epiphany when you think about a performance appraisal and you think about how it at work and how that parallels the way that we have been brought up and instructed in our youth. They oftentimes, performance appraisals are based on numbers, right? So you get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What does that mean? That means if I don't have all 5s, I didn't get a perfect score. Ergo, there's something wrong with me. Perfect score means I'm doing everything right. And we want to do everything right as though right ever existed, which it did not. Right has never been in existence. There is no 100% prescription right way or perfect. I don't believe in perfect. It's not a state that exists in humanity. So when we think about performance appraisals, especially at work, and they generally, research will tell you that they're generally ineffective, that they're oftentimes demotivating, and we end up walking away looking for and striving for something that doesn't exist. The other piece about, Julie White, they have, like Lily, have moved away from performance ratings. When we rate people on a scale, which is oftentimes, although we try to quantify it, they're still objective or subjective measures of performance. That's a really tough place to be. And you've got imperfect people judging imperfect people. So how do we cope with that? How do we deal with that? One of the things, and I think Kylie, it's on the next slide, that I want you to really think about as you move into performance appraisals and knowing that it's an imperfect system. So, of course, our immediate thought is, we got to fix the system. Well, sometimes you have to deal with reality, which is that you work in an imperfect system. So if I'm working in an imperfect system, how can I help myself so I get what I need out of this particular imperfect system? Because it's never going to be 100% right, because there are humans involved. So I want you to think about this. When you go into your performance review, as you are starting in, more often than not, we are going in with this mindset of, I want affirmation. I want to know that I'm doing a good job, that I'm valued. So back to Julie's point, especially as women, tell me how valuable I am. We walk in with that mindset because we haven't done this first piece, which says, what do I really need from this performance appraisal, and how am I going to get it? So we are very passive in our interactions with these performance appraisals. We walk in hoping that we will hear how valued and how, important we are, things like that. And what we get oftentimes is feedback, which is, here are all the things that you did wrong. And sometimes we get, here's how you fix it. If we're and fix it. Fix it. You are not a kitchen sink. You're not a kitchen sink. You're a human. For goodness sakes, fix it. Here's how you fix it. Right? So that's what we get. And then we walk away feeling like dog poo because we're like, dang it, that is not at all what I needed. So the piece that I want you to take away from my section here, it's not little, it's really important. My section here, sorry, that was words matter. And I shouldn't say sorry either. That was words matter. Look at me typo and undo. Do you guys remember the typo section where I talked about how I speak in typo? So I'm just backing up for a second. When you go in to that performance appraisal, good boss, bad boss, doesn't matter. I want you to think about, what am I going in looking for? Am I looking for affirmation, which are the things that tell me I am valued, I'm appreciated, the things that I do well? Am I looking for feedback? What's not working and how do we make that better? Or am I looking for coaching? So Julie brought up this piece of coaching. And coaching at its best, when coaching happens well, coaching is, how do I do this better. Now, notice the difference between feedback, which is what is wrong, and coaching is, right? So oftentimes we get like, here's what's wrong and good luck trying to fix it. Coaching actually says, I see what you're doing and here's a way to make it better. So think about the workout that you did. If you have a really good workout coach, they come along and they sort of tweak you, right? They adjust your hips or they move your arms back and they're like, if you do it this way, if you moved this way, this will work better for you. I do Olympic weightlifting. So tiny tweaks will actually make me move better. They will help me lift better. That's coaching. So as you're moving forward and thinking about, I've got this performance review, what do you really need? When was the last time you really asked yourself, what do I need before I enter into this conversation, this performance review, this conversation with my husband, right? How many times has that happened to you where you're like, hey, honey, what do you think of this? So dangerous, because what he's going to give you is feedback, and that's not what you wanted. What you wanted to hear was that it's amazing. So be very, very specific and intentional in your language so you know what you're walking into and what you're going to get out of it. I'm going to let Rebecca round out that piece a little bit more by talking about this is really up to us, not the person at the front of the room, not the person across the table from us in a performance review. It's really up to us to ask for and get what we need. Rebecca, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. And tying this back even to what Julie said and where we are at this stage, this is up to us to be self-aware. And the number one characteristic of CEOs across the board globally is self-awareness. So if growth is what you're looking for, and you want to be promoted and you want to excel in your career, whatever your career is, this is a trait that will take you further than another brownie badge or another degree. It's to get really, really comfortable with your self-awareness and asking for what you need. Even in your friendships, even in all aspects of your life. So if I'm getting ready to go out, and I'm wondering if I'm wearing the right outfit. If I send a picture to my friend, if I just want to know, hey, is this appropriate for the venue that we're going to? I'm going to say, is this the kind of place we're going? If I want critical feedback to say, am I wearing jeans or am I wearing shorts? Or should I wear heels? Or then ask for that. I don't ever anymore send something and say, does this look okay? Because the fact of the matter is, if I feel amazing in it, I'm wearing that shit. But I may just want to know, is it the right for the environment? I don't want to show up in my jean shorts to the party dress place, so I may ask for some specifics. But when we get really clear on what we want from others and what we need, we then can start to ask for it. And historically, notoriously, women aren't great at asking for what we actually need and being specific about it. So that's a piece of it. Another piece of it is being very self-aware about who you are and your gifts and talents, and being affirmed for those gives you far more flexibility to move around into different roles in your career, different roles that you may play, philanthropic endeavors, board of director endeavors. But when we ask for feedback specific to the role that we play, we then start to box ourselves in thinking, oh, well, I'm a customer service person. I'm a salesperson. I'm a programmer. Whatever the role is, I want your self-awareness to be about you as a human being that gives you the flexibility to say, you know what, if I'm not feeling it in this particular role, I know how I can take my unique gifts and talents and go and take them to another role, especially when we've been affirming ourselves and asking for affirmation into our uniqueness, not just the role that we play. So The other aspect of this is business, though, because when we're talking about performance reviews and we're talking about business, it's really important that we know both the overarching story of the organization. What is your organization about? Who do they serve? Why is that important? Some people may call it culture. I call it story, because to me, story is important for how your customers and external people see you, as well as internal and how you interact. So I call it story. But the other aspect of knowing how you add value and being really self-aware is knowing how you contribute to the money-making model of the organization. Businesses exist to make money, and every role in the organization should be aligned in some way to the money-making model. And the more you know your business model, the better it is for you to make choices that contribute positively to the money-making model and the story of the organization. And much of this is noted in Daniel Pink's research from his book, Drive. He discovered, well, he noted, we've known it inherently forever, but he validated it through facts and research, that it's not really money that motivates us. It's autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Autonomy means I know what I need to do and I have the freedom to go and do it. Mastery is because I know what I need to do, I want to keep getting better. And purpose is I know how what I'm doing aligns to, I'm going to come back to, story and the money-making model of the business. When we can take whatever role that we play in an organization and align to understanding how it matters, we work in a different way. We're not waiting for that, am I getting it right? We're not waiting for every ounce of feedback to tell us the next decision that we could make. So as we move through the roles that we play at work, one of the things that we can do is start looking for evidence of how we are contributing. Look for evidence to us adding value, being relevant to the money-making model, being relevant to the customers, being relevant to those internally that we serve. And the more that we can acknowledge that, then we start to put that up in our story center of our brains. Let's flip to the next, Kylie. Remember this? We have so much knowledge that we've already acquired. Are we using it as well as we could, or are we going and getting more? So when we start to think about all the past experience that we've had, there's richness to be found there. So before we start to think, oh, I need to go take another class or read another book or listen to another podcast, sometimes it just takes some time and reflection to say, what do I already know? What have I done in my past that's similar to what I'm faced with here? How can I call upon some of the things that are already logged in my story center that contribute to the story of the organization, the money-making model, in my role and for my company? Here's the deal, y'all. Managers and leaders love it when they don't really have to manage you. Like, that's the best. When someone has taken the time to understand this is the best decision moving forward, then it's super easy to come and affirm that decision. But when we hesitate and wait for direction and wait for the feedback, we inadvertently slow things down. And we don't mean to, we're just caught up in that desire to do it right. Now, I'm not saying just go all rogue and do whatever you want anytime you want. But I'm suggesting that you know far more about your department and your business than you give your own self credit for. Mm-hmm. And to get more confident in those decisions because of the immense amount of experience that you already possess, because you are closer to the work than your manager and your leader. He or she has a different view of it, yes, but you're in it and you're doing it. And likely you know what's best for the customer. You know what's best for the organization. And to take some time in reflection to say, okay, what's my best decision here? And move forward makes the business better, makes you better, and it will be recognized. The more you do that, your manager or your leader thinks, oh, she's good. And that feels good to be autonomous and make really great decisions. So one of the things that you can do to prepare for this confident decision making is make a badass list. Make a list of all the stuff that you've done really, really well. Actually, I'm gonna go back, because there's this next slide, Kylie, I actually forgot about. This is really important when we're talking about making great decisions. So I talked about this in the last session as well. The organizational charts, everybody knows what box they fit in there, right? And the organizational chart is important. But information flowing up and down the organizational chart in terms of how to make a decision in the moment takes too long and isn't valuable in the moment. The way that work gets done is across the organization. And our work is more like a relay track team. And the most important part of a relay team is the handoff. So whatever work you do, you pass it on to the next person, or you receive it from someone before you in the kind of supply chain going to the customer. And so the more we know about the work that goes in before us and where it goes after us, then we've got the ability to make really great relationships and decisions and go talk to the people in these other departments and really understand what would make this a better working relationship. How could I improve my work? And that is really valuable to you in making decisions in the moment, and doesn't require you to wait for your boss to tell you or wait for that performance evaluation. You can improve in the day, in the moment, in the week. All right, I'd love any questions in the chat box about the handoff and all that stuff, because it's a really rich discussion that I wish we were live and could just dig into. But all right, I'll be happy to answer them in the chat. So in this next phase, as making the badass list, and you can flip, Kylie, I have to do a little call out. That amazing bicep right there is the one and only Alex Perry, ladies and gentlemen. That is an Alex bicep, and she's my only friend that I can walk into a room. Actually, this happened to us at an event that we hosted in March, and someone recognized her for her biceps. So that's affirming a gift and a talent right there. But I use this to illustrate, and BWC stands for Badass Women's Council. And I use this slide to represent two things about your badass list. Make a badass list that says, here's all the times that I've done something really great. Here are the times that I've made a really great decision. Here are the times that I felt great about my work. And you could even include, here are the times that I've overcome a struggle and I've gotten through something, and what were the things that I used to get through that struggle. Make that list. That's in your story center. Bring those memories back. Reflect on those memories to build your confidence. The other reason I use this visual to depict this badass list is, who are the people that are in your life that will help affirm your gifts, talents, and abilities and raise you up and give you confidence? And that is what the Badass Women's Council and the Badass Women's Council community is meant to do, is to surround you with other career women who also have great experience, but also those that are willing to affirm you and say, you got this. Because sometimes we just need someone to say, yeah, you got this. You may know it in your heart, but when you've got that other woman who's in the same kind of work and just trying to figure it all out as a career woman, as a career mom, when she looks at you and says, you got this, it gives us that sense of, okay, I'm going in, I can do this. And so when we take the time to do these things proactively, and I recommend that this be a part of your weekly planning process, that you reflect back on what decisions did I make last week that were really, really good. Let's hold on that for just a second, Kylie. We're going to go to that. Let's go back because Alex is going to cover that in a minute. And this is a little bit different, and I know those words will be really distracting, is reflect back on the things that you did last week that you're super proud of. And that will encourage you to go forward in the next week. And Alex is going to talk about this in a minute. But I want to tell you a quick story, and then Alex also has one from her work. One of the bits of feedback I got while I was working with the Franklin Covey organization, and I worked there for 19 years, is someone said in a meeting where the CEO was also present, I will say, that Rebecca doesn't really have a manager. And one could take that comment as meaning that I go rogue, that I do what I want, that I don't care about the structure of the organization, and I do what I want. That's not actually at all what they meant. And that's not at all the way that I operate. What was meant by that comment was, I recognized that when I was teaching in corporate America about feedback, not very many people were great at feedback. And I started to think about the ripple effect of that. When so many of us were waiting on great feedback to further our own careers. And if we weren't getting great feedback, how were we going to be great in our careers? So I started to test some things out, and I started to learn the business model. I started to learn the work of the other departments that I interacted with. I started to build relationships with people in the departments that interacted with mine. I started to ask them, hey, what could I do to make this better for you and for our clients? And I got to know the business, not just my role. I got to know the business and the money-making model better than those that I reported to. And so I was able to make really good decisions in the moment that didn't require as much management and feedback. And so that was actually a compliment. And so this idea of self-awareness is critical. And Alex, you have an example of this that comes from your clinical background as well, right?
Yeah. So when it came to self-awareness and self-reflection, that was the name of the game. So many of you may not know that my background, I'm a speech language pathologist. I still am. So I spent nearly 17 years working with people who lost their ability to speak, either through accident or through illness, injury, birth. They were born that way. And so as part of my training and all throughout my career, we had a structure. We were taught very, very early on. And so, I mean, I did hundreds and hundreds of clinical hours. So it's a 7-year program. And one of the very first things that your supervisor does before they before you ever touch a patient, they're like, you get a notebook. You get a notebook right now. A little spiral bound notebook, and they called it your SOAP notebook. And what you would have to do, so they would hand you a little patient, generally one that was like the world's easiest patient. They were like, oh, we're not going to give you somebody. It took a long time. I finished my career in brain injury. So you work up to that level, but they hand you a notebook and they say, you need to do what's called a SOAP note. Have you all heard of what a SOAP note is? You know what a SOAP note is? A SOAP note is, so it's an acronym. I know, I hate acronyms too, but this one works. So you would write for every session I ever did, every clinical hour. So I want you to think about this, hundreds and hundreds of hours. For each one I ever did, I had to write down these things. So S stands for subjective. How did it go? How did I feel? How did the patient react? So it was always in the lens of the patient, and then my lens, my performance. Patient did this, Alex felt like this. So good, bad, like all of those, softer terms. Then it was an O, objective assessment. Where's the data? So I did a task. What was the percentage of correction? What was the percentage of queuing? You name it. I mean, I counted everything from like numbers of swallows. Like if you want to do somebody who can bean count, numbers aren't necessarily my jam, but I can count stuff all day long because we were trained to do that. So you had to have that objective measure. And so in the business world, that's progress towards your goal, right? The next piece is assessment. So, what is the overall assessment of progress? Is this working? Is it not working? And so, is what I'm doing working? Do I need to change me, or do I need to change or does something about the environment need to change? Do we need to change the treatment schedule, the plan? What's going on with the patient assessment? And then we had from there was the P. It was the plan. What was I going to do? Not what someone else was going to do to make this different. But what was I going to do? What was the plan for the patient? What was the next steps they needed? And what was the next thing that I was going to do to make a difference? And so through years and years and years and years and years of doing that, what my supervisors were teaching me and what I think is so critically important for folks today is that every time I went into a meeting with my supervisor, I could speak to what I was doing well, what needed to change, what value I was bringing to the patient, what value that was. So when you got into the hospital world, like that translated to, am I hitting my productivity measures? Because although we don't love productivity, right? I'm not a machine, but the number of patients I saw and the efficiency with which I saw them was what drove the business. If I didn't see my patients, the business didn't make money. The end of, right? So money making model. I always understood that and I could speak to my numbers. So if my productivity dropped, why did it drop? And what were the things that I was going to do? What were the things that I was going to do to make that better? And then what was the plan? So then my supervisors could step in, the ones that did well, and say, here's a way to make this better. Here's a way to make this faster. Here's a different approach to try. All of those things. But it really boiled down to me taking ownership of providing myself with the things that I needed and then reaching out and asking for. So I would go in knowing what I needed, right? So if I needed some coaching, I could ask for it. If I needed feedback, like, did that work? I don't know if that worked or not. Was that the way it's supposed to look? They could tell me that. And then if I needed affirmation, I could ask for that too. And so it's something I want to leave you guys with as we sort of, tie this up with a bow. From my perspective, when you think about affirmation, feedback, coaching, it's really about you and your ownership of that. It's about knowing what you need and being willing to ask for it. It's those three things. We make it way more complicated than it needs to be, but it's just those three things. And so to put this in more businessy terms, because Lord knows I don't expect you to write a soap note for every last thing that you do, because that's ad nauseum. Oh my gosh, I can do it in my sleep. But a few questions for you to consider before you walk into that next one-on-one or that next conversation with your boss, which is number one, I influence the money-making model of the business by. Rebecca and I intentionally led with this question because what I find is this question usually goes to the bottom of the list, especially with women. And I'm going to call us out for this. We don't want to talk about the money. We don't want to talk about it. We're like, no. Start with this. You want to get people's attention. You want to show folks that you know what's going on. Start with the money-making model. I influence the money-maker. Somebody had too much coffee. I influence the money-making. For goodness sakes, I'm a speaker. I influence the money-making model of the business by. I use my unique gifts and talents too. This is your badass list. This is where you get to show off. And we don't want to show off. Don't get too big for your britches. Keep yourself low. Because no one will notice if you don't tell them. It's just the truth. So we get all worried about being like, oh, I'm going to be so arrogant. I rarely find a person who is, now there are some, but that says too much about what their gifts, talents, and abilities are, especially in the workplace. I add value by. So these are the things that you give Like, here's how I add value to my team, to the clients, to you, manager. Here's how I am of value to you. My purpose here is, there's a broad level question there. If you're struggling with this, that, like, think about that one for a minute. I create impact from, and I get meaning from. So those are all about you and what's important to you. And then when you can share that with your boss, your manager, your peers, your coworkers, people can help and support you in the ways that you need to be helped and support. So if you are not creating impact, but you know you get impact from doing something else, if people don't know that, they will never get you to the right place that you need to be. If you are not getting meaning from your current role, what do I get meaning from, and how can I get to the role that leads me to the meaning that I want to be pursuing? So I want to leave you with those questions and just the confidence to know that you can walk in to that next conversation owning all of it, which really then makes it much simpler because you're not dreading what's coming next, because you can own this part. You can own this part, and then you're giving yourself the affirmation, the feedback, and many times the coaching that you already needed, because you already have the answers. Rebecca?
No, so true. And just the exercise itself gives you confidence. It doesn't mean that you have to fill out the blanks and hand it to your boss. If you want to, great. But mostly it's to bring it together so that you're confident in going into that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking for other women that would love to affirm you and to be a part of this journey, you can listen to the interviews that I do on the Badass Women's Council podcast. There's some great people that I interact with and share their stories on the Instagram page. And then most importantly, join us in the online community so we can get to know you and know how we can support you, because that's what we love to do. So I know there's more stuff coming up. Again, I just want to take this moment on behalf of Alex and I and Nicole and Alyssa and say thank you for affirming us with your feedback and your comments. It's been really encouraging for us to see that this has been helpful, and it's why we do what we do. So thank you for that. So what do we have coming up next? This isn't the end. This is just the end of this series. So what's next?
Well, I think you might have just passed the baton to me. We Thrive, Rebecca, Alex, and Nicole. Hi, I'm Kim Grambley, and I'm the CEO of IWL. And gosh, what a gift this has been. And I'm going to keep this short because I know we're getting close on time. But I just really want to thank you. I've grown as a leader through this. And the thing, I did want to highlight one thing y'all have said. This importance of the money-making model, it is really important because it typically does go to the list. And I'm going to say it from two standpoints. We deserve as women to be paid our value. I don't wake up every morning thinking about working just to make a paycheck, but I do want to be valued for what that is. And the other thing I would say, and I run something here in town in Indianapolis called Conscious Capitalism, totally volunteer. And Rebecca, you and I were talking about this earlier this week in a phone call. Business is going to solve the world's problems. I do feel strongly about it. Business is human. So businesses do need to thrive and make money so we can help in so many other arenas in our world. So a little bit of a sidebar. No, this is not the end. And I'm just delighted. Let me just say, I think many of you know that IWL is most known for a conference it does every year in Indianapolis and Louisville, and we are pivoting to virtual for obvious reasons. And we will soon be announcing our virtual conference in early October. It's incredibly exciting. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, we want to give back. And so beginning on July 21st, we're actually going to be launching a virtual series. You all are invited. There is no charge to it. There are going to be 3 amazing speakers from the IWL bench, our conferences and other things that we're involved with. The first one is with Christine Cameron on July 21st. She's going to lead us through kind of a guided meditation, and actually from her yoga studio, Compose Yoga. You don't need to bring a mat, but please join us. It's going to be at the same time, 10 to 11. You will need to register for all of these. Christine's also on our board, an attorney at Ice Miller, but is also the founder of Compose Yoga. And we do have to work on that inner peace in today's world. Sherry Riley, oh my gosh, she is amazing. She is from Atlanta. She spent 20 years in the entertainment industry and has been one of our, she's been one of our keynotes and will be opening our fall conference, our virtual conference. So we're super excited about her spending an hour with us, and she's going to talk about the 5 ways that we can live in our power. And then our last speaker before our fall conference will be Dr. Hope Zeller from Louisville. She's spoken at both conferences. She's amazing. She's going to work with us on how we connect to ourselves and how we then can need to connect to others to really initiate change. So she'll be part of this series. I just want to thank We Thrive, Rebecca, Alex, Nicole, and most importantly, I really want to thank Salesforce, the Women's Network. It is, you guys are such an amazing corporate partner. Kylie, you've done a great job. Kelsey, you know I love you. We love you. All the board members. We're just so grateful to have been a part of this. So thank you so much, and much more to come, because we all need to thrive and we all need to be the change.
I love that. Thank you, Kim. And on behalf of Salesforce, again, Kelsey Jones, I'm the president of our Women's Network. Thank you. This has been an incredible series. I know we took 2 weeks in there to pause and reflect and figure out how we can better give back to our Black community. So thank you all for rolling with us and supporting this entire series. I love, love, love the fact that we've recorded it. So if you want to go back and reflect on any of those sessions, send them to other colleagues, please be sure to do so. Kylie also dropped a survey link in the chat, so please fill that out. That helps us understand what kind of content we can continue to support the community with. And I absolutely love being able to kind of bring 2 like-minded organizations together, We Thrive.live and IWL, because it truly shows the power of what we can do together. So thank you all on behalf of Salesforce, and we will be sure to share all of this content again on Salesforce's internal chatter page if you're an employee, but also on Rebecca's YouTube channel. So survey in the chat, link to the YouTube playlist in the chat, and please make sure you follow Badass Women's Council and IWL social channels so you can get all the updated information on other amazing content to really help us get through the rest of what is 2020 and what's to come in 2021. So thank you all again, and have an amazing 4th of July holiday long weekend. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.